The early 2000s may as well be the golden age of video games. With so many great games released, especially on the PlayStation 2, that era is marked by a plethora of titles that still hold up remarkably well. And the good news is that even if some of them didn't have PC versions, most of these titles are still playable today on PC thanks to emulation. That's why today I've prepared a list of 5 great PS2 games that are still worth playing today. And we're gonna talk about why they're worth playing and how to get them working on the PCSX2 emulator. So let's get started. Number 1. Tekken 4. The fourth installment in the famous Tekken series is an interesting fighting game that tried to push the series in a slightly different direction at the time. Developed by Namco in 2002, it featured a darker and more realistic tone than previous installments in the series. It also introduced new gameplay changes such as interacting with walls and the ability to move the character before the round begins. Aside from that, the game also featured a new graphics engine and a brand new story mode, with more detailed backstories and cutscenes.
So, what do you want?
It doesn't have online multiplayer, but with its story and Tekken Force modes, it's still a lot of fun to play even today. And on PCSX2, it runs very nicely. In this footage, it's running internally in 5K, and as you can see, the art direction makes the graphics hold up very well. Of course, you can also play in the way it looked back in the day, if you prefer, and it will also run better in that case. Now let's talk about the settings on PCSX2. Here you can see what settings I've used, and you can pause to check out the details. If you're going to be playing in high resolution, you're going to want to use the widescreen patch. The UI textures don't look so great at high resolutions, unfortunately, and you can use the forced bilinear filtering setting to make it a little more blurry if you want, but in either case, they'll have some edge artifacts that can't really be fixed. But other than that, the game looks great in high resolutions. Just make sure to use high blending accuracy and enable sharp mode in the in-game settings. Number 2. Sly 2 Band of Thieves. The second installment in the Sly Cooper series was developed in 2004 by Sucker Punch Productions, the same devs behind Ghost of Tsushima. It expands the gameplay with larger environments, more complex heists, and improved mechanics. The series' stealth platforming action is more refined than the previous game, and with Sly 2's new open-world dynamic, it remains a lot of fun to play even today. You get to play as not only Sly Cooper himself, but also Bentley and Murray, and each character has their own gameplay quirks and dedicated missions. With its funny story, charming characters, and diverse gameplay, Sly 2 remains one of the best titles in the PS2 library, and it also plays greatly on PCSX2. You've been watching it running in 5K internal resolution, and you probably noticed that the cel-shaded art style holds up very well. Of course, again, you can also play it with a vintage look, and it will still look very nice. The choice is up to you. Now for settings, here are the ones I've used. Once again, I recommend using a widescreen patch, and this game also has a no interlace patch, which is essential. On this one, the blending accuracy setting can be left on basic without problems. Outside of that, there's not much else to mention. The game just works very well. Number 3. Burnout 3 Takedown. The third installment in the critically acclaimed Burnout series developed by Criterion Games in 2004 is the one that introduced the revolutionary takedown mechanic, hence the name. It is considered to be one of the best PS2 games ever released, and one of the best arcade racing games ever. It combines high-speed street racing with vehicular combat, and does so using a top-tier presentation that creates a stunning sense of speed. The World Tour Career Mode features various events on multiple locations across the world, and these events are divided into multiple racing modes. The game also includes the Crash mode that was introduced in Burnout 2, in which you try to create the largest amount of damage in a single car crash. In short, it's filled with content, extremely polished and fun gameplay, and great visuals. And these visuals can be enhanced with PCSX2. In all of the footage shown so far, the game has been running in 5K internal resolution at 60 FPS with a widescreen patch, and it's even featuring an HD texture pack made by Panda Venom. The game looks fantastic this way, but it also looks great with PS2 native visuals, and ultimately, the choice is yours. As for the settings, this one requires a few specific settings to fix some visual glitches. The important ones are enabling manual hardware render fixes, then on the Hardware Fixes tab, set GPU target CLUT to enable exact match, auto flush to enable all primitives, check disable save features, and check preload frame data. And finally, on the Upscaling Fixes tab, set round sprite to half. I also recommend setting mid mapping to off, especially if you're going to use the texture pack. A link to the texture pack with the instructions is in the description. Aside from that, I also recommend using the widescreen, 60 FPS for menus, 60 FPS for crashes, and progressive scan patches, especially if you're playing in high resolution. Number 4. Resident Evil Outbreak. Released in 2004 by Capcom, Outbreak is the first attempt at co-op multiplayer for the Resident Evil series. It was also one of the last games in the series to feature the classic Resident Evil gameplay, with fixed camera angles and tank controls. The story takes place during the events of Resident Evil 2 and 3 at Raccoon City, and is presented through multiple episodic scenarios. Up to 4 players connected online can choose between 8 different characters with different abilities and starting items. The game can also be played solo, in which case the player will have 2 AI-controlled partners. Some parts of the game can be quite challenging. However, the game has 4 difficulty levels to choose from, so it remains totally playable even for those that aren't used to tank controls. And the creepy survival horror atmosphere that is synonymous with classic Resident Evil titles is very much present in this game. So if you like classic survival horror games and you haven't tried Resident Evil Outbreak yet, you can do so right now on PC with the help of PCSX2. You can even play it online using PCSX2. Check the description for a link with the instructions if you're interested. As the footage has shown so far, the game still looks good at high resolution. Here it's running at 4K and it's using an HD texture pack made by Zombie167. As with any game on PCSX2, it can also be played with a retro aesthetic, which in this case might contribute to the horror atmosphere. But as always, the choice is yours. In terms of settings, there's not much to talk about for this one. It has a widescreen patch like the other games, and the trilinear setting can introduce some visual glitches, so I'd leave it on automatic or off. Number 5. Gran Turismo 4. Widely regarded as one of the greatest racing sims of all time, the 4th installment in the iconic Gran Turismo series was released by Polyphony Digital in 2005, and it was the largest title in the franchise at that point. With more than 700 cars and more than 50 tracks, including real and fictional ones, the game has massive amounts of content. Gran Turismo 4 was praised for its realism and accurate simulation, and for its immersive career mode as well. The visuals are also very impressive, as expected from a Gran Turismo title, and hold up very well today, especially when playing it on PCSX2 at 4K. As you can see in the footage, the lighting, the shaders on the cars, everything looks very nice. It looks better than what you expect from a PS2 game. The only flaw that you may have noticed is the texture quality, which can be a little rough if you look closely. There's an HD texture pack available for this game, which was made by Hatersbeat and Mr. Cassidy Art, but I chose not to use it in this video because, while it does look very good, it introduces a few visual glitches in a few spots. Still, I recommend trying it out for yourself. A link to it is in the description. And like every other game presented so far, it can be played with a vintage look, and that looks great as well. Either way, with all the content available, you'll have a great time with this game on PCSX2. In terms of settings, there isn't much to worry about. I would just recommend keeping texture filtering on bilinear PS2 and trilinear filtering on off to avoid visual glitches. And the game supports widescreen natively, but you have to turn it on in the game's settings menu. You can also use the widescreen patch to make the text look better in widescreen. And there it is. 5 great games from the PlayStation 2 library that you can have fun with right now on your PC. Have you played any of these already? Let me know in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like and subscribe for more. If you want to get in touch with me, follow me on X. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.